Knowing when to leave and when giving up can actually help us grow is a significant challenge many of us face. No one wants to be seen as a coward. Typically, we prefer to stay put, holding firm, and fighting for what we have, enduring and waiting for a change or for things to improve. For instance, we might continue in a job where the toxic environment drains our energy, or we maintain friendships that harm us even when those people don't respect our boundaries. However, there may come a time when we ask ourselves whether it's worth continuing in our current situation. In some cases, the best thing to do is to leave and be honest and sincere with ourselves. Walking away can be a way of freeing ourselves, even if some might view it as weakness or quitting. But how do we know when it's time to make that decision? The decision to leave may seem straightforward but is quite complex, often hindered by our fears and attachments. At its core, the question is this situation benefiting me, or is it time to move on? This seems like a simple query, but often it's difficult to answer. This video explores the idea of leaving using Stoic philosophy principles to help us see things more clearly and decide whether to stay or leave. But first, it's essential to acknowledge that this video reached you because someone subscribed to our channel, liked this video, and left a comment. So, do the same and continue the cycle. The challenges of leaving behind. Some consider distancing oneself as a sign of weakness, but interestingly, those who criticize us for leaving are often the ones who benefit the most from our presence. Why is that? The answer lies in power. When you distance yourself from someone or a situation, you are actually taking away the control they had over you. Choosing to leave is a demonstration of strength. It shows that we can flourish and progress without depending on what is offered to us. Deciding to leave can be an act of intelligence. By moving away, you demonstrate that you can fend for yourself, proving your autonomy and becoming stronger in the situation. Yet, many people find it hard to leave. It's complicated to let go of what we want to distance ourselves from. But why is that? The primary reason we find this difficult is attachment. The fear of leaving stems from how attached we are to what we intend to distance ourselves from. This can happen even with something that isn't ours yet, for example, desiring a specific car. You've spent months researching, getting excited about owning it, and even before making the purchase, you've formed a bond with that car. When we attach ourselves to something, whether a future plan, something we currently have, or even memories of what was, leaving it behind becomes a challenge. It's hard to detach from things we are attached to, and this feeling of attachment can extend to objects, people, animals, ideas, practically everything we value. Understanding when to step away and embracing the courage to do so can be transformative, aligning with Stoic philosophy's teachings on autonomy, inner strength, and the wisdom of discernment. These decisions are deeply personal and require a blend of introspection, wisdom, and sometimes, the bravery of letting go. This attachment indeed grants these things a certain dominion over us, allowing those who provide these objects or experiences to manipulate that power. For instance, if a car salesman notices your desire for the car he sells, he knows he has an advantage in negotiations. Being so attached to the idea of having that car, you might find it difficult to turn down a bad deal and probably will overlook the vehicle's flaws and defects. Attachment also makes it hard to leave toxic relationships. When a friend, business partner, or spouse treats us poorly, but we have a strong attachment to them or what they offer, it becomes very difficult to distance ourselves. In doing so, we lose not just someone important to us, but also everything that person represents in our lives. The same is true for addictions, making them so hard to quit. Smoking may harm your health, damage your image in some circles, but perhaps it represents some form of control over anxiety, over situations you face and cannot change. Perhaps that bad habit we nourish every day represents our exemption from responsibility or our ready-made justification in life. When we try to rid ourselves of something harmful, we also lose something we deeply desire. But there are moments when we must ask ourselves what is more worthwhile. Another reason it's so hard to leave is the fear of the unknown. This fear paralyzes us when we think about leaving behind what we know. What awaits us out there? Will it be a change for better or worse? Not liking your job and dragging yourself to work every day is bad, but what will become of us if we decide to leave? How many uncertainties await us? We might be in a toxic relationship and want to leave, but what if everything falls apart when we make that decision? How will my life be afterward? We want to quit smoking, but how will we relieve stress and anxiety without those 5-minute breaks? We wish to live without sugar and genuinely take better care of our health and diet, but where will we find refuge? Where is such comforting and affordable pleasure? We feel bad about our stagnant life, but if we start acting differently, implementing our dreams, and discover we are not, join our Stoicist journey at Buy Me a Coffee. Support with a donation or as a member and have a voice in our community. Every coffee fuels our mission to share wisdom. Be our pillar, make a difference today. Not as capable of realizing them, this fear often makes us prefer staying put, even stagnant and sometimes unhappy because the new and unknown seems scarier. It's like standing at the edge of a precipice, wondering if it's worth the jump. What's on the other side? Something good or something even worse? The uncertainty of the future can be so frightening that it prevents us from taking that leap of faith. Making significant life changes, like leaving a job, ending a relationship, or changing habits, is indeed scary because it takes us out of our comfort zone. This brings to mind the adage, better the devil you know than the devil you don't, which keeps us trapped for fear of what's to come. This fear of the unknown holds us back, keeping us in situations, relationships, or habits we no longer want, simply because we fear what might happen next. However, it's good to remember that the unknown can also be a place full of new opportunities. Sometimes, to reach something better, we need to face that fear and take a step toward the new. The third reason we struggle to leave bad situations is that sometimes we don't want to admit that something is wrong. We become so immersed in our day-to-day that we don't notice when things start to change around us, and we end up saying everything is fine, ignoring problems and closing our eyes to everything else. This attitude is very much like the boiling frog syndrome. The boiling frog anecdote, while a myth, serves as a potent metaphor for human behavior in gradually worsening situations. It illustrates how we can become accustomed to negative changes that happen slowly, to the point where we fail to act until it's too late. This story teaches us about our inability to notice danger when it arises gradually, leading to potentially dire consequences. Stoic philosopher Epictetus offers a simple way to think about when it's time to leave, which can help us make these tough decisions. Imagine your house filling with smoke due to a fire. If the smoke is minimal and you can ventilate the area, staying put might be fine. However, if the smoke becomes overwhelming and harmful, it's probably best to leave. This analogy is useful for understanding when we should distance ourselves from harmful situations, but in practice, it remains somewhat vague. What counts as too much smoke? While in extreme situations, such as physical abuse, the signs are clear that we should leave, life often presents us with more complicated scenarios where the decision isn't so straightforward. Sometimes, the smoke can prevent us from seeing the situation clearly, as if we can't notice the smoke because it's everywhere. So, how can we truly recognize this smoke that Epictetus speaks of? To answer this, we can use some economic ideas to delve deeper into Epictetus' analogy and help us make decisions in complicated moments. Have you ever found yourself weighing the pros and cons of staying in a specific situation, like a job, a relationship, or even a place where you live? If so, you've essentially performed a cost-benefit analysis. The benefits could be the reasons why you entered that situation or what you hope to gain by staying. Using Epictetus' house as an example, the house provides shelter and protection, a space for your belongings, might be in a good neighborhood, and have a great location. Over time, this house also gains sentimental value, holds your memories, and becomes a familiar space, a true home. On the other hand, the costs might include issues brought by the smoke, discomfort, lack of visibility, health risks, and even psychological problems that can arise from constant stress and disturbance. When the costs begin to outweigh the benefits, or in other words, when the problems surpass the advantages, it's a sign that the situation has become too smoky. Therefore, the amount of smoke becomes something relative, depending on the benefits the place offers. In the same way, we can apply this cost-benefit analysis to relationships, jobs, and other aspects of life to decide if they're too complicated and if it's time to distance ourselves. Often, we remain in complicated situations even when we know we shouldn't. The problems are greater than the benefits, and this isn't news to us. The concept of sunk costs explains why we often continue in certain situations because of what we've already spent on them. We invest time, effort, emotional dedication, or resources into something that now does more harm than good. A prime example is marriage. We invest a lot in a relationship, have expectations, and often dedicate years of our lives to our partners. So, when a marriage deteriorates and it becomes clear it's no longer working, it can still be hard to leave without feeling like we're abandoning something valuable. However, this thinking falls into the fallacy of sunk costs. Believing we must continue on a path that's harming us just because we've already invested a lot in it is a mistake. What we've invested previously is gone, those resources won't bring the expected outcomes. They are definitive losses. We have no control over the past, and continuing in the situation won't bring back what was lost. Understanding this idea can help us make decisions focused on the present and the future, without being tethered to what we've spent in the past. Let's face reality, every second we spend inhaling smoke in a polluted house is a second we're not breathing fresh air outside. Every moment we spend in a loveless marriage, in a toxic work environment, or maintaining false friendships is time we could be living better. The opportunity cost means that by choosing to stay in a situation instead of leaving, we're missing out on what we could gain from another choice. Staying where we're harmed has its price, not just the direct suffering but also what we miss out on living. While you're inhaling smoke, there might be a place nearby with fresh air, proper ventilation, and air conditioning. Perhaps outside, there are new opportunities, new relationships, and chances to grow personally away from that toxic environment. By not distancing ourselves, we're overlooking these possibilities. So, when considering the opportunity cost, we open ourselves to other paths if we decide to leave the smoke. Instead of only thinking about what we lose by distancing ourselves, we should also ask what we lose by not distancing ourselves. What are we missing out on living? What are the risks of staying in this suffocating environment? Maybe by resigning and moving to a new job, you're not just losing seniority in some employment benefits but are gaining vitality, reclaiming your energy, self-confidence, and professional growth. By quitting smoking, you're not losing a form of self-control but gaining autonomy to manage your emotions and deal with anxiety and stress healthily. By ending a relationship that's no longer working, you're not just losing years of your life but beginning to gain a new life where you can truly live. Closing your business that's no longer viable isn't just about losing your investment, it might be an opportunity to avoid sinking deeper, to close the doors while the situation is still under control. Sometimes our choices defy logic and contradict maturity and wisdom, being driven solely by desires or fears that we might not fully understand. However, according to Stoic thought, we should strive to clarify our emotions and analyze each situation based on logic and reason. Being able to make good decisions comes from understanding why we find it hard to let go of certain things. Learning from the Stoics, we can start to recognize these moments and decide on the best path forward in life more clearly, deepening our understanding of opportunity cost. The concept of opportunity cost deserves closer attention, especially when we consider the decision to leave. In this scenario, the focus shifts from the current situation to what lies beyond it, to the possibilities that await us once we free ourselves from what holds us back. This reminds us that when we leave something behind, we're actually moving towards something new. Thus, departing doesn't lead us towards an endless void where life loses meaning, even if it might seem that way before making the decision. There's always something ahead, even if it's not immediately visible. Departing is also a leap of faith, believing that by closing one door, another will open somewhere. Of course, we don't know exactly what awaits on the other side, but should the fear of the unknown prevent us from exploring new opportunities? Alan Watts once said that a life worth living cannot be lived without risks. Considering the vastness of our planet and the multitude of people living on it, this leap of faith isn't as risky as it might seem. The world is full of opportunities and resources waiting for us. If we choose to seek, we'll find countless places with clean air. So, why insist on staying in an environment that diminishes us? Why choose to maintain friendships that use us? Why dedicate ourselves to a job where there's no possibility for growth and development? Why nurture habits that don't showcase our potential? What we're leaving behind might seem like the entire universe, but in reality, it's just a small part of a vast world brimming with opportunities. Then, what's the reason for this fear of loss? Why the reluctance to open that door and discover a world that has so much more to offer? However, most of us struggle to distance ourselves from what we're attached to. It's difficult to abandon what has become such an intricate part of our lives, our identities. It's challenging to let go of what, whether we like it or not, is part of our lives. We are complex beings. Sometimes, we don't fully understand why it's so hard to leave. To conclude this video, I want to remind you that we never leave entirely empty-handed. We are touched by the places, things, animals, and people we've interacted with and where we've been. We carry with us the memories, having learned valuable lessons from the experiences we've left behind. These lessons are like seeds ready to be planted in richer soil, bricks to build a new home where, hopefully, we know to keep the smoke under control. Leaving doesn't have to be an absolute end, it can merely be a necessary conclusion for a new beginning.